View from the Gutters, episode 142. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Journey into Mystery, Volumes 1 and 2, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 105.08. View from the Gutters 142, I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Tobiah Panchin.
I'm Kaylee Fleeman.
And I'm Joe Preddy, who is taking the hobbits to Isengard. I'm Kit DeForge.
Because Joe Preddy's taking the hobbits to Isengard.
That's my understanding,
filming, yeah.
But my understanding of Elvish is also very limited, and Joe showing up in flowing white garb didn't help me understand the situation any better. And even though he's supposed to be a wizard, but I preferred to put that image in your head.
I got that image, and he's got like a nice white tiara with a little teardrop
needs
gem.
a tiara.
Yeah, that's how I see Joe all the time.
Yep. Oh my god.
Well, I would imagine that you see
Glorious.
him that way because that is how he physically appears.
Yes.
Because that is how he dresses in his everyday life.
Yeah, Patreon level. Just go ahead and ship us some money so we can get Joe a new tiara.
Yeah.
Because the one he's wearing is looking pretty last season.
Yeah.
So.
You know, he tries, but he just does not keep up with the most current looks.
No, it's because he
it's really to his detriment.
Well, honestly, tiara
think he
fashions
could rock
evolve
it.
way too quickly these days.
No. He
It's
keeps
every
breathfully
season.
explaining to me about how he's been around beyond ages and that this is fucking legit, you know, like that. And I'm like, Joe, only it's like, it's manto, blah, blah, tida, poo, poo, or something. And I'm like,
It's
fuck,
Elvish,
this got
yeah.
soft focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of Patreon, we would like to thank our Patreon sponsors.
Yes, thank you to our Patreon episode sponsors, Brandon Hill, Addison Appleby, Brian May, and Becca Lewandowski.
Love my new tiara, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the tiara, everybody.
Thank you for keeping the wheels on this increasingly rickety bus on.
Dude, motherfuckers.
Can we be a train instead of a bus? I like trains
I already
more.
decided that. That's why
Yeah,
we
okay,
tooted.
good. No, we're good, then everything's fine.
I was thinking, wouldn't the bus go beep beep?
The little engine that shouldn't. Fuck 'em.
Well, speaking of things that we shouldn't do, we read some Loki this week.
Yeah,
Yes, we
Journey
did.
into Mystery,
Yes.
Fear Itself,
Yes.
Volumes 1 and 2.
Yes. So,
Yep.
Kaylee, if I remember correctly, you had waited to read this until we picked it for the show?
Yes.
So this was your first time reading this?
Yes.
So what did you think?
I really loved it. And I have a soft spot for Kid Loki anyway. Just because of Young Avengers and everything else that Kid Loki appears in. But he's a cutie. But some backstory for those who have not read or don't keep up with Marvel. Fear Itself is a huge Marvel event. 7 evil hammers fall to Earth. People pick them up. They do bad things with them. Shit happens. That's Fear Itself.
Excellent synopsis.
Yeah, basically.
That's pretty much all that happened.
It's and nothing
And
changes.
the serpent is involved in some way.
In some way
and
or
there's,
something.
There's Nazis. There's some Nazis show up.
Yeah, there's some
Specifically
typical-
Sin.
The daughter of the Red Skull.
Right.
Yeah, pretty standard Marvel giant events. You don't need to know that to read this.
Right. It does get referenced a lot, but you can figure it out even if you haven't read
I
it.
mean, if you're smart enough to read, you're smart enough to figure it out, I feel.
Well, thanks for making a
well-
dig at me, Kaylee.
Honestly, I think what's
Bam.
more important to understand is what happened immediately before this, which was Siege.
Yeah.
The immediately preceding giant Marvel event,
Except
since Marvel just fucking rolls events
Event
one
right
right
into
after the
another.
other.
Yeah.
Except I didn't read Siege, and I totally got this book without reading it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so
Well, I mean,
consider
they
that,
basically tell you what you need to know at the beginning,
Yeah.
which is Loki got sick of being the predictable god of chaos and evil and committed suicide so he could die and be reborn as something different.
so passe, God of Chaos.
Yeah,
God
right?
of chaos, always being chaotic.
Whatever.
Well, I kind of
So
felt like that whole
last
thing was
millennia.
kind of a dig at the Joker in a backhanded sort of way.
I can see that.
If we're going Nordic, it's probably the Joker.
The Joker.
Excuse me, the Joker.
Das Joker. Or der Joker.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. It could
We
be
just
that.
lost all of our Scandinavian listeners.
Nah, they love us.
Yeah,
They're bringing
honestly.
us to Sweden Con. I don't know
We
what
are
the Comic
enormous
Con
in Sweden.
is in Sweden, but we're going.
Oh,
They are a
Sweden.
significant chunk of our listenership.
Sweden. Jag älskar dig. Yeah, get down.
But yeah, so this is really great for people like me who honestly don't care about a lot of the shit that happens in Marvel, especially when there's a giant event. You just kind of roll your eyes and wait for it to pass. Because you don't need that, because Kieron Gillen does such an excellent job of priming the reader that you don't need to read other things that are unrelated to the story in order to like have a firm footing before you start reading this book. And that's something I really appreciate in any comic. I think that's something that the big two in particular are really guilty of. They just kind of assume that you've been following one particular thread that they've decided to take and run with.
A plot gallstone that you must pass.
Yeah, basically. And you're just like, but I don't want to. That sounds like shit. No, thank you.
There's kind of two different types of reboots. There's the reboots where it's like, this is a bold new direction for Iron Fist, Moon Knight, Daredevil, Captain America, like whatever. And it's like, you kind of have to understand what came before in order to understand why this bold new direction is a bold new direction and changes the character, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the other kind of reboot where they're like, all that shit that happened before matters not one fuck. Here is something completely new and different with this character, which is what this is. It's old Loki is dead. He does not matter. This is new young Loki. All new.
Yoki is a good...
You can call him Yoki
Yeah.
if you want.
Yoki.
That's fine.
Totally.
Yoki Bear.
And so you don't need to
Getting
know anything that
picnic
happened before
baskets.
because everything that this character has ever done begins right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something I really appreciate.
Well, they also almost treat old Loki like he's a separate character because
Well,
he's
he
like,
is.
I left myself a secret thing that only I could find, and then like the other guy finds it, and he's like,
I Horcruxed.
yeah, well, I totally meant to do that. That's everything's fine.
Everything's okay.
Tremble before the wrath of Loki. Like that, even. That's horrible.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if you did know and enjoy old Loki, it's not like that doesn't matter, because what he does have ramifications on what's going on now. It's just non-essential, and so it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, so you can, if you do follow these events, you can read this as a continuation, and I feel like it's probably a very satisfying continuation
Yeah, I thought it
of
was.
that story. But if you're uninterested in old Loki or
you missed everything.
Yeah,
you know?
you missed
like you're
everything.
New, you're a new reader.
yeah, this is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love just about Asgardians as a whole are their relationships and how human they are. And in particular, the relationship between Thor and Loki as you first see it in basically the first pages of the first volume, where Loki is trying to learn more about Asgard and Midgard and who he is and how he stands with everybody. And he is on an online forum and is like, I'm Loki, the god of mischief. And everybody's like, you're a troll. And he's just like upset by this and is talking to Thor. And there's a panel where Thor is just looking at him. He's like, but you're a half giant. Loki's like, I know, that's what I keep telling them. Yeah. It's just, I love Asgardian relationships with Midgardians, and I'm glad that Kieron does a good job of playing with that, even though you don't really get a whole lot of Earth involved in this story, except for Earth might be destroyed.
Maybe.
Sort of a thing. Maybe.
Yeah,
if Odin has his way.
It's a really brilliant reinterpretation of the relationship between Thor and Loki, because there was this jealous rivalry between them for thousands of years, basically all of the published history. And to recast that as a much younger brother with an older brother that he looks up to and tries to emulate, it really just completely alters their dynamic in, I think, a really positive way.
Yeah, well, I think you also get the relationship without it being tainted by Odin. Because
Yeah,
Odin has pitched them against each other for so long.
Yes.
Which is why they have a rivalry in the first place. So Odin seems basically uninterested in this Loki. And because
Packages
of that...
don't matter, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Little people don't pack nothing.
Nope.
Yeah.
Say that to my face, you wet noodle.
I said it to you sideways. Please don't strike me.
Yeah, honestly, I think the best lesson of the last 10 years in Thor comics has been Odin is a dick. Don't listen to him.
Don't listen to him.
Dude,
He's
there's
Or
like-
just get rid of him in general.
Yeah.
Because
There's-
like he's way more interesting when he's not
dead.
there. Yeah.
I was turning to Kaylee and talking about this. I was trying to remember which little mini series sort of thing that I was reading with them like a couple years back, where basically like Odin goes into the Odin sleep and stuff, and Thor and Loki come to blows as they tend to, but Loki is essentially explaining like, hey, this is why I kind of want to be a ruler. These are the things that Odin does poorly that we all just kind of accept, and I don't think that's super great. And one of the things among those is that we didn't need to be competitors. I already was an outsider in this. It was already expected that you would just kind of be in charge of things. I don't understand why he had to twist the knife in our relationship, basically. And it kills me because I can't think of which miniseries this is, but it was so good because it was one of those like character moments where like you get so used to the idea of like mustache twirling Loki, just, oh, I'm going to fuck with you now. Oh, Thor, you dumb brute, and it's just like, yeah, that's a thing, and you've done it since the 60s, but it's a lot more fun when, like in this book, you're allowed to change up that dynamic and you can still have some of that history, but like, or at least people with some knowledge of that history, but then go somewhere interesting and new with it, where like Thor still cares about him when there are all these different stories where Loki does something awful and Thor wants to believe that he's not actually doing or not actually being bad again, when so many people are like, nope, he's a jerk all the time forever.
Yeah. Sorry, listeners, you may end up getting some sweet background rain noise in this. I left the window open. And
I was actually, going to play a CD with some like lightning and thunder
Yeah, we
situation.
need to get some slow jazz in here.
Yeah, right? Some rainy
And then we'll all
sound
fall
effects.
asleep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nap time. No, I think that you guys hit on something that I really enjoy about the series, which is you can change dynamics in a comic with characters you've had since the 60s. And to be honest with you, if you don't change the dynamics of characters that have existed since the 60s, I really lose interest in them. I mean, it's so easy to, especially as a modern reader, to be like, oh, I'd like to read about Spider-Man. And it's like, okay, well, here's, 60 years of Spider-Man, and it's all Peter Parker. And he's always basically doing more or less the same thing. And while certain things around Peter will kind of change, it's still Peter Parker. He's still a good guy, and he still tries to do the right thing and fucks up. And there's only so much of that I can take before I'm like, okay, are there other ways to tell these stories? And that's why I really appreciate characters like Miles Morales, or doing something like Ultimate Universe, where it's like a complete restart.
Or the Superior Spider-Man, which completely changed the dynamic of Spider-Man.
I absolutely loved, or Spider-Gwen, or like we're starting to see the Spider-Verse kind of like leak into Peter Parker, and it's something that I'm really excited about. And something that I loved about DC for a long time was Legacy. Like, Legacy's super fucking important. Barry Allen dies, that's great. Here's Wally West. Hal Jordan doesn't want to be the Flash anymore, that's great. Here's Jon Stewart. Like, you have different eras in superherodom, and then when you're kind of like, you've got this Justice League, or in this case you have this Asgardian kind of relationship, and you start to rotate pieces in and out. Like, you don't have Odin for a lot of the story, you have the All-Mother. You don't have old-time mustache-twirling Loki, as Kit says. You get this new young Loki, and it's suddenly you have a brand new dynamic in the family of Asgard. Volstag's relationship to everybody in this book changes because one thing changed.
That's where Kieron really like shone, like writing this book. Where I just really liked that in changing that dynamic. He didn't just change it and let it be a change. That, as Kaylee pointed out, it's way more fun that he made a point of having Loki himself talking to Loki, being like, "Oh, this is shit. I've done it forever. It's boring. Everyone expects me to twirl my mustache and stuff." But and I think that you can have kind of self-aware humor in that without it like beating you over the head. And I actually thought it was super fun and, again, very true to the original character of Loki to do things in that way.
Absolutely. I think that discussion is really important.
Yeah. Well, in this, Kid Loki has a lot of the same key features that old Loki did, of him being, I don't want to say conniving, because this new Loki is a lot more well-intentioned than old Loki was, but he definitely schemes and
manipulative.
He manipulates people.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately to achieve an end goal that is beneficial.
Yeah.
But he can't necessarily come out and say, well, this horrible thing has to happen, otherwise things are much worse will happen. He can't just tell that to everybody and have them go along with it, because nobody will believe him. So he has to play.
Because he's a liar.
Yeah. So he has to play this game of, oh no, you caught me in a lie. I guess this was my end goal all along. And then it turns out that was the actual lie, and that he managed to manipulate people into doing what he needed them to do.
Yeah, he's definitely not any less manipulative than he used to be.
Right, well, Loki is always Loki. He's still the god of lies and mischief.
Absolutely.
But
Those are his
instead of being
powers.
the chaotic evil Loki, he's the chaotic good Loki. He's lying for justice.
Right.
He's using his powers as a trickster god to help Asgard.
Yeah, and he's relying on everybody's mistrust of old Loki as well, because he does a lot of like villainous speak. Like, I will have my brute over here torture you and rip out your tongue and hang you by your intestines and da 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 da. And he doesn't mean any of it, but that's him lying.
But also,
Playing to the bleachers.
they believe him.
Yeah.
Because he's Loki.
They already want
because
to.
because
they already want
old
to.
Loki would have.
Right.
Yeah.
Loki always lies.
Yeah.
Well, 623, in regard to that dynamic that you were talking about, I was thinking about this whole bit where he's having this conversation with Thor, in here. It's like, oh, Thor, I need your advice. And then he says something here like, I have no time to spend a pleasing white lie. Like, if I were to tell you that this thing's happening, what would you do? And that, I think, plays well to this whole, like, reimagining, playing with the dynamic of their relationship again, to give us something similar but with a little more fun flavor, where there is like a genuine desire, like you said, to want to like look up to your brother and want them to think well of you. Even if they know these aspects of you, it doesn't mean that you can't still want that. You can't still want somebody to accept those sides of you that other people know. And I like the way he has that conversation with Thor in that particular chapter.
Think about it, but in thinking about this series, beyond what we read even, I can't think of a time off the top of my head that Loki ever lies to Thor.
Wait, in this?
In this series or Journey into Mystery as it continues from here. As far as I can recall, like at the very least in the issues that we read, like he's always truthful with Thor.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting dynamic. Thor is the one person that he doesn't lie to.
Well, he's also the one person he like avoids a lot, because I think he feels indebted to Thor for bringing him back, so he doesn't want to manipulate Thor.
Well, if it's a person who chooses to try to trust you when other people are dead set against it, like there is an interesting degree of respect that would be happening there.
Yeah, and also because Thor does trust him somewhat, you know, it's the one thing he can kind of count on. So he doesn't want to blow it. I love the scene at the beginning where they're like, where did you get the gold? Like, Thor's trying to figure out how he got the phone. He's like, where'd you get the phone? He's like, I bought it from some guys in Broxton. How did you buy it? And he's like, oh, with some gold.
Yeah.
Where'd you get the gold? From some dwarves. Did you steal it? No, we were gambling. Were you cheating? Yeah, but they were cheating too. The game was cheating, and I cheated best.
Yeah.
Like, that I think is the perfect introduction.
Unfairly, most fairly.
Right. Like, that's the perfect introduction to this Loki. I think.
Yeah.
I think that opening nails how this character works, and I think that makes jumping into this series really easy to read. As dense as it is, because it's not a quick read. I wouldn't say it's fairly dense, only because there's a lot
that's going on.
Right, there's a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of it is like pretense, like he's pretending in a lot of panels, and if you're not paying attention, like you can easily be like, wait, what? I thought he was trying to do that.
Well, that's really the thing with this character is you have to be paying attention to what he's doing, because you're going to see him do 5 or 6 different things, and then you're going to find out why he told all those lies and how his plan comes together. Yeah, which is part of the fun of this series, is trying to figure out what his plan is.
Yeah, for sure.
I really like Mephisto in this series. Yeah. I think Gillen really nails his voice and his character as the devil, like the lying, like he is another kind of trickster figure, because he's not Satan or Lucifer or any of those versions. He is the devil, like the guy who's going to trick you and steal your soul.
Right. Yeah. Well, and they actually... One of the issues in the second volume, I can't remember which one it is, has Mephisto going into a bar.
Right, which I love that issue.
Yeah, and he's just like, just that whole like, oh, well, of course, none of us would ever claim to be Satan. Like,
yeah, because we'd instantly be torn apart.
Yeah. And the way that he does... He's very much so the devil in the way that he tricks the bartender basically into to be turned into ink, so that he can write
a note,
a note to somebody else, and just that whole setup, you really get a good feel for that character.
Well, the whole punchline where he's like, "Oh, you didn't offer me pretzels."
Yeah.
Like just that, oh, there was the one thing that you didn't get. That's how I tricked you.
Yeah. You didn't offer me pretzels, and I loves me some pretzels.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fun juxtaposition to have him there with, the Loki that we have now.
Yeah.
I think in that sense.
Yeah, I really feel like Gillen has a very good understanding of the way that myth and story work, and the way that these characters as beings of myth and beings of story operate within the context of the Marvel Universe, which is something like the way that he writes these characters. I don't think anybody had really done it in quite that way before. And the fact that, I mean, just to spoil the end of this for anybody who hasn't happened to read it yet, Loki beats the Serpent by getting a pen and rewriting his mythological story,
right,
to add a weakness that Thor can then exploit. Like that is such a brilliant way to beat a god. And I can't think of it like any time in the Marvel universe that it had ever been done like that before. And in what Gillen wrote after this, and then Al Ewing took up the series after it became Loki, Agent of Asgard.
Yeah.
Both of them did absolutely a phenomenal job playing off of this idea of these beings of story whose history can literally be rewritten by telling different stories about them. In Agent of Asgard, he's working for the Allmother, literally buying his old stories out of the Library of Asgard so that he can burn them, because they literally affect who he is. And if he gets rid of them, he doesn't have to be that Loki anymore, because that's not part of his story anymore.
Right. Yeah, the malleability of like what reality is based on what's been said about you.
Yeah, I absolutely love that concept.
Kit and I were talking a little bit, and you had a lot to say about the involvement of actual Norse mythology, if you wanted to go into that.
No, like that's one of my favorite things.
There is a $1 charge for your phone going off during an episode.
Zordon needs to get a hold of some teenagers with attitude.
Excuse you. Somebody needs to get a hold of Kim Possible.
Yeah.
It totally sounds like the Power Rangers one.
I actually compared it.
Such a ripoff.
I compared it, and they are exactly the same, except the Power Rangers goes dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
There's like 2 extra notes at the end.
So they're not exactly the same.
It's a reference to Power Rangers, I'm almost positive.
Probably.
The Kim Possible one? It's gotta be. Also, I just wanted to say teenagers with attitude.
Well, but Kim Possible is a teenager with attitude.
Yeah,
Can
right.
we call
That's
it
the reference.
Batitude,
Some
please?
Batitude.
Thank you. Jesus.
But what were you going to say about the Norse mythos?
Well, what I've always loved about reading Thor books is my favorite Thor books aren't like these movies that I've been getting. They're more leaning on these histories that we already have. And when Kaylee and I were talking about this a little earlier, I was saying that Thor is kind of in this unique position where you have like just hundreds of years worth of story that you can pull stories from this tradition and you can tweak them and you can have fun with them. Some of the things, again, like Hounds of Hell in this, as kind of a reinvention. I really, really like when Volstagg goes into the bit about how Thor tamed his goats.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Tooth
the
Gnasher.
Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder. And how he had to go and essentially like get the dwarves, I think, on his side to remake the yoke for the bridle. And there are so many stories like this in Norse tradition that you can import these directly into your comics, but you can still make them really fresh and really exciting. And they're like insta character building, I guess. It's basically written for you, but there's no point in looking through these that I feel like Kieron just goes, well, this is already here. I'm just going to lie back and let this, do it, like, write itself. He's very good about selecting some of those stories and things from that tradition and acknowledging what parts of them are good cut and paste into the story that he already has. Like, he looks at these stories and kind of goes, oh, well, what does this tell you about Thor? What is the story trying to tell you about him? Some of the things, particularly with this bridle, being a manner of like, don't just come into these other realms and like assume that you are the authority because you believe you are. You have to prove that you're strong. You had to prove that you're brave. You had to prove that you're capable in order to, to have these goats. Because basically he wanted them to kind of show up the other armies that he was seeing in the mounts.
I like the story because he sees the elven cavalry and he gets jealous.
He's like, "It's bullshit. I need fire-breathing goats."
Well, he's like, "I need a horse," and then Loki says, "Well,
you could have these sweet goats instead." And Thor's like, "Yeah, hubris."
The strength of the rider is determined by how difficult it was to break your mount.
Yeah.
Breaking a pony is not as impressive as breaking like a stallion, right? So it's like, but what is the most stubborn animal?
The most badass thing we could find.
Goat.
Yeah,
I know.
And
I got it. I figured it out.
It's a very Thor thing because so much of Thor and Loki's relationship, again, as brothers, is what a lot of brothers do to each other growing up, where it's just kind of like, how can I put him in a situation where he makes a total ass of himself and I can sit back and laugh.
Yeah, I love it.
But I think it's, and Volstagg points that out, like, and then you had to go and say this, and Thor, he had to go and be
I
like,
love
fuck
that
yeah, I'm taking these guys.
He like brute forces his way through that
He was
solution
like, that
too.
summer sucked for Thor.
Because he's like, oh, well, I can go get these dwarves to like make me a yoke, but they like only made one, and there's two goats, and one can't be broken while the other one's, well, fuck it, I'll just put them over both goats at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, Thor, stop.
Yeah.
He's like, no, it totally works. It's fine. I got him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful about their relationship. And that was like really a part of so many of the old myths was Loki would create a stupid situation where people, or mostly Thor, was in trouble. And then he would have to create a situation to get them back out of trouble that usually ended up with Thor being embarrassed even more.
Yeah.
I can't remember where it started, but there's one story in particular where it ends up with Thor in a wedding dress.
Yeah.
Being married off to an ice giant.
Yeah,
At
so
one
the
point-
goblins or the ice giants like want to marry Thor's sister, and someone agrees.
So he stands in instead.
But
at the
it's
wedding.
because they like stole Mjolnir or something of his.
Yeah,
and he
it's
needs
some
to go get it
ridiculous
back.
situation,
Yeah.
and
Right.
that Loki
And Loki's
created.
like, put on a dress, dude.
And so
do
he
it.
cross dresses as his own sister.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Loki convinces Thor to bet Mjolnir,
Yeah.
which he then loses,
Right.
and then they're gonna get the ice giant to marry Thor's sister so that they can get the hammer back as a bridal gift. But he doesn't have a sister, so they just dress Thor up as a woman.
Yeah,
it's something like that.
It's actually the very beginning of the origin idea of a bro putting on a dress at a party and saying, "Lost a bet, man."
Yeah.
That's actually
Is that
the
the
true cultural origin of that.
Oh, I see.
It's Thor.
Well,
you didn't know that.
He gets his hammer at the wedding. He steals it back and murders everyone.
Yeah, incognito.
In pure Thor fashion.
Yeah.
Hammer smash.
Yeah, because he couldn't just leave.
No.
Gotta kill them all.
Yeah, he's like... Pfft.
But see, what I think I'm trying to get at is like Kieron has this really good understanding that the relationship isn't just adversarial. That the reason these stories are told in this way is because it's about presenting two different kind of things as equivalently powerful values, like to be clever and to be able to, like to move a situation to your will is a sort of value. And to be determined, and not to the degree to where you're stubborn, but to be determined to enact things with your will is another. And so where Thor embodies this idea of like, no, this is my will, I want it, I'm going to make it happen, come hell or high water. Loki is the other side of the coin, kind of going, hey, I want this thing to happen, but how do I make everyone else do it for me? And that actually is one of those things in those stories that you wanted to teach people. And if mythology exists for a reason, it exists to teach people values, different sorts, and tell them stories, explain things, and then try to get people to respect or embody those values.
Or to learn something from a situation too. Is like, this is why you always leave a note. That kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
It's
the Bluth mythology. Yeah, I understand.
All hail J. Walter Weatherman.
God.
But I think the other side of Loki that I really enjoy is a lot of kind of this like mythological writing about strong guy tropes, like Conan stuff, is a lot of might makes right, or at least might makes less dead. In Conan's case, like, he's strong so he doesn't die, and that's why he gets to go on another adventure. Loki is kind of like the anti-Conan. It's not his strength that keeps him alive. It's the fact that he can like talk himself out of any situation, or like
wits,
or like outwit stuff.
For this Loki in particular, he doesn't have all of the magic skills that old Loki had.
Right.
So, and they even say it, I forget who says it to him in particular, but basically you're going to have
Loki says it to Loki, maybe.
Oh, was it? Okay, that makes sense. Basically, he's just like, well, you're going to have to survive basically on your wits alone.
Yeah.
The little bit of magic that you do have and your wits. That's what you have. Good luck.
Yeah.
And it makes for an interesting take on a character that the way that he's been written through the ages basically has every power ever, just because certain writers were like, oh, also he can do this because it's convenient for the story.
Yeah.
And if you mash those all together, it's like, oh, so he's like all powerful then.
Yeah.
Found it, actually. I really liked your point on that. So, but I liked how he wrote it as power corrupts, therefore you will have little. And learn to survive on your wits alone. Is, you had to become a new version of yourself to survive just on those wits in the 9 realms. And he, like, I don't know, classic Loki, Loki classic, we'll change it that way, Coke terms, understands where the point that he began to rely on his own power was kind of the point to where he lost what made him what he was, and like the bigger or larger than life sort of god and creature that he was like this clever, conniving person. He was like, well, I was leaning too much on my own power at one point. It wasn't interesting, it wasn't fun, it wasn't essentially like what made me what I was meant to be, I guess. So you need to reinvent that, both for me and for, by I guess, extension, yourself.
Yeah.
So
well, I think at some point a lot of characters go through that kind of, they've become too powerful and now we need to kind of tone it back, and they found an interesting way to do that with this. I will say at this point, I am kind of sad that Kid Loki is not really around anymore because...
I was kind of sad at first, although I really came to embrace Teen Loki as he was written. Although, if you've been reading the series, Kid Loki is not completely gone.
No.
He's still kind of there around the edges a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
different relationship,
really loved this entire run of Journey into Mystery and the adventures of Kid Loki and Leah, the handmaiden. It's a really fun series.
Well, there's a lot more characters I wanted Kid Loki to interact with that he didn't get a chance to interact with because he never really got dropped into the larger Marvel universe until he was Teen Loki.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you saw Kid Loki in Young Avengers, and then at the end of Young Avengers run, he becomes like a teenager Loki, like early 20s Loki, maybe.
Was he a teen in Miss Marvel? In the third Miss Marvel trade?
Yes, that's the newest incarnation of Loki. He was a young adult.
Right, yeah. That's
late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, that's what
That's Teen Loki, or, Loki Agent of Asgard is like slightly older.
Yeah.
And so, when he interacted with Ms. Marvel, which is great, but I kind of wish it was Teen Loki or Kid Loki in a lot of ways. Also, Kid Loki and Doctor Doom never got to hang out together, and that was a missed opportunity in my opinion.
Yes,
True
but in I think it was Axis, Teen Loki and Doctor Doom got to interact with one another, and that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Because Doctor Doom basically goes on this, I have elevated myself to God by making myself a myth.
Right.
Like, I've created robot duplicates of myself so that nobody knows whether it's me or a robot doing anything that I do. So I have all these contradictory stories of me, just like a myth.
Right.
And goes on this whole thing. And that's a really cool story as well.
Yeah. Well, Doom is just like one of my favorite Marvel characters, so.
Yeah.
I want him to interact with everybody cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so much storytelling potential with Doom because he has so many different, he's a scientist and a supervillain and a wizard.
Yeah, and he's a magic guy.
And he's just like, he's one of those people who's got such a huge stick up his butt. It's always fun to play him off of different characters.
Yeah.
To see how how does this character work against this backdrop?
Right.
And Doom is such a beautiful tapestry that it's always interesting to see characters play off of him, whether it's Luke Cage, like, where's my money, honey? Or Doctor Strange, or Loki, or whomever.
Yeah.
There's a lot that could be done with this character, and maybe they will bring Kid Loki back.
Well, yeah,
find a way to bring him back because it's Marvel, and honestly, if they want to, they will. How
did you guys, we haven't talked about the art at all yet in this series. What do you think of, it starts off, it's Dougie Braithwaite.
Right, who did the Earth X trilogy.
Yeah.
It's a very different Doug Braithwaite than the Earth X stuff.
Well, he's going for a very specific style in Earth X. And I really dig his art in this. Not so much the guy that replaces him, though.
I feel the exact opposite.
I also feel the exact opposite.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Doug Braithwaite on this.
I don't like any of those like portraiture type illustrative styles in comics where everything to me just feels wooden. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like it's very expressive, and I think the way I explained it to Kaylee, how I felt about it, is that I'm not fond of fantasy or mythology kind of rooted stories like this being colored in such a way that I could imagine them on the side of a stoner van. And that's kind of how I feel about some of this work. Is like, there are some pages in the first trade here that are, really solid, really nice. Like, I like some of the kind of monster related stuff, looks very nice. But when it comes to actual expressions on humanoid faces, I kind of like, ugh. Like, I don't really go for that kind of plastic face.
Well, and I really want to see the process on this because, I mean, not all of that is Doug Braithwaite. Like, the pencils seem very minimal on this series, and that he let a lot of the colorists kind of do a lot of the work for him. I don't have a lot of problems with like the models or like the way he's framed a lot of the panels. Like I think a lot of the pencils are really good. I just think that the colorists, which on the issue I'm looking at, it's Ulysses, Areola, and Andy Troy. It's very like smudgy colors is what I call it. Like it looks like a lot of like smudge tool in Photoshop.
Yeah, it's not.
And it just, while I don't like inherently dislike it, it feels a little strange on a series that is, it's all about myth and grandeur and magic and power, and then the art feels like a little mundane for like it's trying to be realistic, and I like almost wish they overshot it more.
That's
and
my
went for
push
more
pull.
of the fantastic.
That's
you know
my
what I mean?
push pull is like for me the pencils aren't carrying the work of the story, and like you said, the colorists I think are expected to put that sense of magic and mysticism in there with some of the effects they're using. Like you look at Surtur's flames and stuff,
right?
Or you look
the
in
smoke around the ground, and
or like when
they're doing
classic
good at-
Loki appears, it's like super duper like ectoplasm green.
Right.
Well,
you
when
know?
you see the Rainbow Bridge and it's this beautiful, huge,
and that totally
twisty-
worked.
Yeah, I think they're
That
doing
splash worked
awesome
well.
effect work with the colors, but I feel like with the faces and stuff, like Kit says, like it is a little bit wooden, it is a little bit portrait, like a little in the style of a portrait.
See, I had the same problem, but the other way around with Portaccio.
Yeah, Will Portaccio.
Yeah,
Is that who that is?
if that's how you pronounce his name, I'm really not sure. His faces are just so weirdly just ugly with lines all over them. Or everybody looks like super squinty all the time.
Will Portaccio is the artist. It starts on 629, I think.
I'm on 628.
Yeah,
I think that's his first issue.
He does 1 through 5, pages 1 through 5, and 9 through 22 on those ones. And he's the one who has like a lot of noise lines around everything. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of that, just because I don't really like that sketchy thing, and that's more of a personal opinion than necessarily the art failed, because I feel like this art is really dynamic, whereas in the first whole volume, it just felt really static.
I agree with you that it was really static.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Kaylee?
I still have more points to make.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Fine, go ahead.
As for the rest of the second volume, I felt like it did a much better job of translating action and making it feel dynamic and showing expressions on faces that were ugly and not necessarily portraits that you would, paint up on a stoner van. It felt like people were talking and people were grimacing and people were interacting. Yeah,
like
they
you
were
said.
making expressions.
So Richard Elson, who was the other artist that worked on the series, he did the Mephisto in the bar story. He also did the Volstagg telling the story to his kids story.
And I think I liked him the best of the three.
Yeah, I think I would say that. I'm not overly fond of any of the artists that worked on the series.
Well, I was going to say in response to Kaylee, like, I agree with you that Braithwaite's art is relatively static. I didn't see it as a detriment. Like, and I can absolutely see how somebody would not enjoy it. But for me personally, like, I had no problem with it. I thought it was fine. I thought it kind of lent an air of mystery to the series, in that it felt sort of like a Renaissance painting.
Yeah, that's where I don't know. I think that's where my problem lies, again, because I think that Kieron's doing a good enough job to do that it felt a little bit like overkill. That there are times when it's like you can have a slightly more modern sensibility with these things going on, because you are still reimagining mythology, but because you have this language that's being used that I think carries that sense of epic legend so well that it suffers from what I feel is like Alan Moore syndrome, where it's like, I'm already told what's going on here. I'm already told what the situation is. I don't need you to like add a Post-it note on top of this particular thing and be like, no, really, it's like this. And I'm like, no, it's okay that you can back up from that a little bit. I I feel like the colorists are kind of going like, oh my god, you know, like they're being relied upon, I think, to try to make these pages look more interesting because of the fact that the pencils themselves are so uninteresting.
Well, I feel like we never really reach a solid harmony between penciler and colorist. Yeah. And I think that some of that may be because pencilists keep rotating through because there is a lot of shared work on this. Or just, you know, that's editorial. Sometimes I think they choose the wrong colorist to work with, you know, not the best match for them as far as pencils go, because you see some colorists and man, they can really color over specific artists, and then you see them over somebody else and you're like, it doesn't work quite as well. I think there is a real art in editorial of matching the right creative teams together that communicate well and like know when to leave, like, oh, if I'm the penciler, I'm going to leave some of the shadows available so that my colorists can come in and do something interesting there, right? Like, it does take communication, and it's possible that they never really got the time to talk to one another. They just don't ever feel to mesh, in my opinion, and so I'm always kind of a little bit distant from this series because I feel like the art sort of keeps me at a distance. And I also feel like Doug Braithwaite and Portacio are kind of they're like they're older comic book artists. They're from an era kind of previous to this one. And not that makes them bad or anything. It's just, it feels sort of anachronistic.
No,
Yeah,
I
I felt like
get what you're saying. And given that we have 3 different artists, even swapping off pages within a single issue, and we're talking about like 10 issues here,
right?
During an event, I get the sense that this was kind of, I don't want to say a rush job, but they were kind of like, okay, like we got to get all this out
under
so we're
the
just
screw,
gonna,
you know,
and that when it becomes an ongoing series after Fear itself, I'm trying to look it up as we talk, but I think it settles down with a regular artist who really captures the characters a lot better.
Yeah, I don't remember the art after this. I know I've read all of that, but yeah, it's just, I really like the story, but this is a tough series for me to read. One, because it's like there's a lot going on in here. And 2, the art never really sucks me into the point where I don't want to leave. It's like I don't really have a problem setting it down and walking away sometimes.
I can see that. I think in this, one of the things I really like about Kieron Gillen, above all else, is that you can tell that he puts the time into his world building and he does the research necessary to make it feel real. And one of the things that Kit and I were talking about earlier while we were waiting outside was the language, where it's not this gross, over-the-top, fake Shakespearean, like, thou'st villain art, just bullshit English, basically.
Right. Immediately creating that distance from the reader.
Where you're just like, this is awful. The language in it is really simple, but it has that feel of like an older, more distinguished language.
He'll throw like a yay or a whatever in there every once in a while to remind you.
Yeah, but it's not so over the top that you're like, oh my god, like these Asgardians apparently just don't know how to talk to each other, and
we're
so
thousands different.
And thousands of years of being alive, their language has never evolved.
But it's still very stilted. Like, he chooses to use a specific way of writing when Loki talks.
Yeah, but
it's purposeful, but it's not as off-putting as like me doth say, you know, like any of that stuff. But it's definitely something he doesn't use. Having read Kieron's other stuff, this is specific. The way he's writing in this is very like tailored.
It's still very communicative, though. Is the thing that that's the problem with that older language, is that it creates this kind of distance where it's more about like, trying to. Again, like, too much of this epic will get to a point where it's like, well, I'm too modern for this shit.
Right.
Like, it's the whole, again, teenagers and Shakespeare problem is that, like, they don't see the stories because of the words.
Right.
And I feel like Kieron has done a good job of making it communicative, crisp, and jocular. So that, like, when things start to get a little too fancy-pantsy in the trousers or whatever, there are still these really great sort of jokes, and I don't even know what to call that old style. It's like, they're not even really underhanded jokes, but they're more like under the table kind of like jabs.
Right.
That are that make these characters so fun. Like the Warriors 3, in across almost every comic I've ever read of them, what makes them fun and effective as a group is how quick they can just good writing for them. Punches, not hard, but in the arm. Between them, it's like you could tell that they're friends and that they care.
They're always
they care about
with
each other. And it's always just kind of like, oh, Volstagg, so great, so vast is your generosity, kind of thing. And where like Fandral in particular will frequently just go, oh, so vast is your generosity and kindness, Volstagg, that it simply couldn't fit through the doors of the stable sort of thing. It's like, neither could you.
Well, I like what are they talking about eating? He's talking about eating Loki at some point. And then,
the eggs, the viper's nest of eggs.
Like, I would step on the
I would smash those eggs. No, you'd scramble them.
You would eat those. Well, I could eat Loki.
That was such a good exchange.
Yeah.
Like,
looking
it
up,
me.
It looks like Gillen worked with a different illustrator on each arc of Journey into Mystery.
Okay.
Well, I want to pose this question in case anyone has. I'm betting at least one of you has. Has anybody read Son of Asgard?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I love that series.
So this is what kept coming up in this whole issue with the art for me, is that loved the story of Son of Asgard. The art, Greg Tocchini, I was like, yeah, like that's the same kind of thing where it's like, I feel like the writing is doing a good enough job to set the scene that I don't need these, again, really painterly plasticine sort of depictions of these characters as if they're, like these statues, these mannequins. Like I feel like the art in that book takes away from the humanity that you're building in the characters. And so when I was looking at these books, I'm going, well, God damn it. Like, Kieron's doing such a good job with this. I just wish that they were allowed to be as real as they feel in the words, if that makes any sense. And I feel like closer to the end of things, I feel a little more confident in that marriage again between writer and artist.
It's tough too, because I feel like this series didn't get the high profile stuff that Thor gets. You get to see like Oliver Koipel on Thor and Assad Ribic and stuff, and I just like
Oliver will always be my favorite.
And we came right off of that into this series, so maybe that's another reason why I have kind of a little bit of trouble with this one, is because I was so used to Asgard looking the way Koipel drew it during the Straczynski run and stuff.
I have like 3 separate Thor posters of his art just because I could not decide.
I love how
so
big
much.
He draws Thor.
Yeah, because he's supposed to be 600
chunky.
pounds or something in canon, so he's supposed to be a fucking
he's
tank.
Like a ham-hock.
But
with legs.
Back to Son of Asgard for a second. Like, I definitely get where you're coming from, but I also I really love the art in that series as well. So I mean, I feel like it's just a difference of opinion in terms of taste here.
And that's
and what
totally
works for you
thing.
and what doesn't.
Yeah,
and that's one thing that I always try to keep in mind whenever I'm like, I don't like this artist. It's not necessarily that the art is bad. It's just that it's not to my taste.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, and
you don't dig on some things versus others. Yeah.
Sometimes you can love an artist on one book and then pick up their art in another book, and it just doesn't work the same.
Yeah.
Like, I really think there is a lot to be said about matching the right artist to the right writer, the right colorist to the right penciler, the right inker. Like, it's a team. That's what I love about comics in general, but it's a team, and when you get an amazing team together, they can put out some phenomenal work that alone they never would have been able to create.
Who was the guy on Captain Marvel? Was it Andrade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God.
He just did what was it? Siege with Gillen for Secret Wars.
Right.
And again, like, I really do not care for his art personally, and it's like you get that very distinct, like, you're reading a series, you're really enjoying it, like the writing feels good, the action is snappy, and then you have a different artist on it who just does not seem to pair with that writer, and it's like everything is wrong about that series. I experienced the same thing with Deadpool, and I can't remember the artist's name on that, but this is the Jerry Dugan run that's still ongoing. Like, it had this really great artist on it, and it felt really witty and really fun, and it had all these great serious moments, and then this other artist came on who had a more cartoony style. And and just it suddenly felt so corny and weirdly disjointed, and it's the exact same writer telling the exact same story, but the art just felt wrong.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is like finding the right tonal team. Like if, like Kit's saying, like so much of the like epic and aggrandizing nature of the writing, the artist doesn't need to also do that. You know, like if one, it's about finding the pairing that isn't overdoing it in scale or whatever, you know?
I think a lot of the problem in the comics world when it comes to making these decisions is that so many people just go, more is better. I'm like, no, more is not always better. You know, sometimes you again, like I've said this before, I'll say it again. Sometimes you've like got the apple and sometimes you've got the cheese. Like it's like they seem like they're different, but again, you know, Ratatouille situation, you put them together and they taste good. There's something new, but you don't need to like take apple and be like, well, fuck, we've got an apple. Why not eight more and apples? Eat them all in one sitting? Yeah. And it's like, well, then you just have a stomach ache. Like, and that's kind of, you know, what happens with me when I read comics is that if I feel like the writer isn't trusting the artist or the artist is like nervous about, the writer told me to do this, I have to do exactly this. And I'm like, no, you should be able to bring your own flavor. Otherwise, you just have a lot of bland. You know, you just have a lot of same.
And it's tough, too, because, especially at Marvel and DC anyway, it's such a shifting sand of what artists are available to work on what things at what time. It's like, yeah, you would love to get artist X on this project, but they're off doing this other thing, or they're not exclusive, or they're signed to do something else, or whatever, you know?
Who is the artist on Next Wave?
Immonen.
Yeah, Stuart Immonen.
Yeah.
They asked Warren Ellis, like, when are you going to do more Next Wave? And he's like, I don't know. When's Stuart Immonen going to be available?
Right.
Never. Okay, then.
Well, and I think Steve Niles and Fiona Staples on Mystery Society is, like, a lot of the same thing. Like, he's never even really talked about going back to it because I think he knows that she's busy and she brought so much to that work that, like, I don't think he really wants to touch it until she wants to work on more. And I think there's definitely writer-artists pairings like that work really well. So, and some like
Gillen
Ellis,
and McKelvey.
And I know Ellis changes the way he writes based on every artist he works with too. So
it's the difference between drawing someone's words and interpreting them.
Right.
That's kind of the thing, is that, like, I don't think you have to get so literal with matters that you're just reproducing something in it, putting something different or something identical in front of somebody's eyes. They already know what they're seeing. Like, there have been a few books that we've read where I've kind of had that situation.
Well,
where
yeah,
it's like
anything older, you know, you're going to see a lot of like, I'm Spider-Man swinging over this water tower with a word balloon of me saying that I'm swinging over a water tower. It's like, you feel like you have double vision because you're like seeing it and reading it, and you're like, I get it. I totally understand what's going on here.
Right.
Time to move on. But I also feel reading stuff like this is interesting to me too, because it reminds me of an era in comics that I don't really feel that attached to anymore, because I read less and less Marvel and DC every year. I read fewer and fewer series that are like, fuck it, get a fill-in artist because the issues aren't going to come out on time. Like, that doesn't exist as much in my world as it used to. Like, when I was a kid, it was all the time. You know, you'd be reading New X-Men with Grant Morrison, and like every third issue is like a brand new artist because they're like, fuck it, put the books out on time. And because I read so many more indies and just like, you know, titles at DC and Marvel that aren't time sensitive, this feels kind of ancient in a way, because, you know, you have artists filling in pages in the middle of another artist's work because, and then some of that's for effect, because I do think that they have Doug Braithwaite do the flashback pages to the Serpent's origin story on purpose, and that everything is colored like a lot softer, and it's like meant to be different, but it doesn't.
You're communicating time in that way.
But it feels different than when they get like Franco and Art Balthazar to come in and do like pages in the middle of Revival or something for like a very specific reason. Like it feels less like an effect.
What was in Alias when they had Mark Bagley come in to do the flashbacks,
right?
Specifically because they wanted a different tone for
they
those
wanted
scenes.
it to look comic booky, you know?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Like I think there's a difference between an effect artist and like, well, okay, there's a difference between using an artist for effect and just needing fill-in pages. So that's another reason why I think this feels so old for me, is because I don't experience that as much as I used to when I was a kid, and so it puts me in like a very specific mindset.
I think that's also partially an artifact of just the fact that this was part of an event.
Yeah, absolutely.
And events have to come out, like this book has to come out before this book comes out.
Absolutely.
Right.
Whereas in a regular series, like they can take a month off.
Like
if
look
it's
at
delayed,
Hawkeye
it's
or
delayed.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not time sensitive that story gets wrapped up, or trying to think of the other one. The Living Weapon, the Iron Fist, the new one. Yeah, like it doesn't matter when those issues come out. So, but when the trade comes out, it'll be all that writer artist for the whole thing. So yeah, that's another thing that makes it feel a little bit out of place.
Yeah, but
how much more of this is Kid Loki before it switches over to Sif?
I think that there are 4 volumes of Journey into Mystery with Kid Loki.
Okay, so we read about
and
half.
then 2 volumes of Journey into Mystery featuring Sif.
Right.
Kid Loki goes off to Young Avengers,
right,
where he becomes Teen Loki,
and then
he picks up in Agent of Asgard.
Right. Yeah.
If anybody out there is trying to follow this character around, you can get all of Gillen's run with Kid Loki from these volumes that we read all the way up to the end in 2 volumes as Kieron Gillen, Journey into Mystery, the Complete Collection, volumes 1 and 2, which is about like 700 pages overall, which is why I've never pitched the whole thing as a regular episode before.
It's a bit long. Yeah. But it's also the second run on Young Avengers, too. In case people are looking, it's not the one that starts with sidekicks.
Right. It's
like...
God, I can't remember the title now off the top of my head, but it's the one that's by Gillen and McKelvey.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to tell by looking at the creators.
Yeah, sometimes with characters like this, you leave the end of a story and you're like, and we were talking about this on the question. It's like, where's the rest of it? So, yeah. That's where it all is. Go find it.
Yeah.
That gets
Do
you
yourself.
Basically caught up to today.
Yeah, and it's honestly like it's well worth following because I think in the last 5 to 10 years, like this is one of the best kind of standalone character arcs that you can read, where you can just read like one series at a time, where it's not like read about Wolverine in Avengers and New Avengers and X-Men and Wolverine and the X-Men and 7 other titles.
Yeah.
Like it's this one character who moves from book to book to book sequentially, and you can follow his entire character arc without delving too much into any other thing.
Right. It does occasionally cross over with stuff, but
mostly it's
side
Thor
stories. Yeah.
Like it's Thor and Journey into Mystery.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah.
Check it out. Read those.
Any other last thoughts before we move on to Rex?
Nope.
Not really.
All right.
Honestly.
Yes, this is a good book.
It really is.
I liked it.
I do like when I can get the maximum amount of Norse mythology for my buck in one of their stories. I don't know, like those are always my favorite.
Would you guys ever be down with seeing Kid Loki in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Do you think he works in that sci-fi Asgardian universe as well as he works in the mythological one?
I want a Netflix series of Young Avengers.
Yeah, I want that too.
So,
but does that need to include Kid Loki?
Yes.
Do you think so?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, eventually they're going to have to follow up on Loki in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because, spoilers, the last time that we see him, he is disguised as Odin and is King of Asgard.
Well, I mean, there is another Thor movie coming out, so
right, but apparently
ostensibly...
Tom Hiddleston has said that he hasn't talked to Marvel in like a couple of years. So I don't even know if he's going to be in the next one.
You're going to believe the guy that plays
the liar,
the Lord of Lying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's lying to you.
Also, it's T. Hiddles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Come now.
obviously.
Excuse me.
Or tittles, if you want to.
Tittles is
Tiddly.
also acceptable.
Yeah,
Or
we're
fiddles,
on,
if you really want to go for it.
Tiddlywinks.
we're on a nickname basis,
Yeah.
apparently.
Mm-hmm. In my phone
uh,
is Tittles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We text
T-heads.
all the time.
Yeah.
Some T-Hids
Snapchat.
action.
Yeah.
Hashtag T-Hids.
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Nope.
All right.
Vetoed.
But,
Vetoing the T-Hids.
yeah, he's got to be in Ragnarok.
Maybe.
Like, there's no way he won't be.
Probably.
Yeah, I would put money on that.
Yeah.
They haven't started filming that one yet.
That is
so,
true.
like,
Plus, he filmed scenes for Age of Ultron that just never made it in. So
Yes,
he had
that
to
is
have
true.
been
Yeah.
in contact with Marvel.
Well, apparently that was the last time. And that was like a couple of years ago
That was a year ago.
that it came out. It was in post-production for a while.
So,
Anyway.
I was going to say, I think we've dug far enough down to hit oil at this point. in this
Yeah.
thing, so
we're rich.
we are.
But yeah, let's move on
Fuck
to...
you, Patreon.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, no, just kidding. Shit.
That wasn't oil
That was
at all.
fake. That was fake oil. That
Fuck.
was hypothetical oil.
Oh, God, it was just shit.
This is a big pile of shit. But now, yeah, let's move on to recommendations. So,
Okay.
Toby, what
Do
would
we,
you...
well, do we want to start with our Patreon
Oh,
fan pitch?
yes, let's absolutely start this. So this is from Brandon Hill
Yes.
this week on Patreon fan pitches. And once again, Brandon has opted to bring back Wonton Soup,
Yeah.
which is a really awesome sci-fi story drawn by James Stokoe. It's set in some universe at some time where there's space travel and aliens, and it focuses on the main character is a character named Johnny Boyo, if I remember correctly, and he is a space chef who travels around the galaxy competing in chef duels with crazy alien ingredients in giant arenas. And the story is kind of like, what if chefs trained like samurai? So like they study under a master and like travel through the galaxy learning food combat. They're not combating, but like food battle.
Iron
So
Chef.
it's basically
yeah.
an adult version of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Wowie.
Well, I thought in Cloudy
wait,
with a
what?
Chance of Meatballs,
No.
don't they just like, doesn't he just like unleash meatballs
Well, not
From-
in the movies.
Science
They're sentient.
meatballs. Yeah.
in the movie? I saw the first movie and I...
The second one, they gain sentience.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
I
see
watched
that
this
one.
There were
Animals.
two of those things.
Yeah, they did.
There's,
God.
oh my gosh.
I heard they
There's so many
wrote the
cute
book when I was a
animals,
kid.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
There's like pickles that eat sardines. How cute is
Oh
that?
my God, that was the cutest.
The first one I liked a lot, especially Mr. T as the cop.
Yeah.
Great character.
Carried the film.
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
broad shoulders of Mr. T.
Yeah. And I will say that the character design for the dad with that like
Oh, it's
Oh
just
my God, just
eyebrows.
the eyebrows.
Yeah.
So
great.
cute.
But yeah, this is unlike that. This is nothing like that. In fact, it's more like Space Iron Chef, where they're like competing.
So
in-
Iron Chef.
So yeah, so Iron Chef.
Technically, everything happens in space.
I mean,
we're in space
God
right now.
yeah.
Damn it.
I prefer to have a terrestrial outlook on life.
Whatever. Terrestriocentrism.
Well, until I go to space for
Take a
realsies,
trip. Mark.
then nothing happens
God.
in space.
That's true.
It's all planet side. So there you go.
Yeah.
Space
Wonton
Chefs.
Soup.
Yeah.
Check it out. It's black and white. It's one volume now, back in print finally after many years of being out of print. So yeah, check it out. It's great. Super fun, and I love James Stokoe. So
Cool beans.
read it.
All right. So I'm pulling a slight audible on what I'm pitching this week, so I didn't actually bring it with me. But I am going to bring back The Now of Brown by Glenn Dillon. And this is a book about a girl named Now Brown. And she is half British, half Japanese. And she's living in England. And she works in like a collectibles shop. And she suffers from like OCD. She has intrusive thoughts, so she like constantly is obsessively thinking about like stabbing herself or like kicking over baby carriages or jumping in front of trains. And it's kind of about her life, and she meets this guy who repairs washing machines, and they have a relationship, and it's really cute and really beautifully drawn, and I think it has a really interesting story. And ever since I've read it, I've been incredibly conflicted about the ending, and so I need other people to read it and talk to me about it so I know how to feel. And I think it would be a really good book for this group in particular to read, because I think that you guys would have meaningful insights that I do not.
I mean, that's pretty much always the case, but
every day, always. So yeah, that's The Now of Brown, and I wish I had a copy to show you guys because I really, really dig the art in this series. It's got a really awesome color palette. Now Brown is very closely associated throughout the book with the color red. And so it's got this really great muted kind of watercolory palette throughout the entire series, except for her. She is always wearing something that is like stunningly bright red. And it has this really cool effect, and I really dig it.
You started talking about this, and I was like, Toby, we already talked about Wayward.
Yeah, except that's her. That's the girl going to Japan.
Right.
This, she lived in Japan and then comes to live in England.
Right. Totally different.
And also, there's no magic.
Right. What? No magic. Fuck this book. Oh.
Maybe there's a little magic.
It's all kinds of magic. So,
Kaylee, what would you like to pitch?
I am bringing back Bitch Planet, Volume 1 by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Valentino Delandro. Is it Valentino or Valentine? Yeah, Valentine Delandro. Basically, women who get uppity in the future get shipped off to Bitch Planet, which is a non-PC way of
Lady Planet.
I'm not at work. I don't have to say Lady Planet. I can call it Bitch Planet all I want.
Do you really have to call it Lady Planet at work?
Yeah.
I thought that was the cutest thing I ever heard.
Because you're not allowed to swear, so you just say Lady Planet.
Did you hear the story about Kelly Sue's kid just wanted to say Bitch Planet a lot, and so would ask her, how's work on Bitch Planet going, mother?
Cute.
This is her, 4-year-old?
I don't remember which one it is.
Her kids are adorable.
Yeah, they're funny.
Basically, women who are non-compliant get shipped off to this prison. You don't return from this prison.
Well, you were being non-compliant.
Yeah.
Prison planet.
Yeah, well, the idea is, and it's kind of introduced in the first issue, well, if you're rehabilitated, you get to come back. But nobody has come back.
Well, and how do you get rehabilitated?
By not
sports.
Well, no, not quite. So some of the prisoners get offered the chance to escape the planet if they participate in this game, which is traditionally for men, and
sports
if they
ball.
win. Yeah, it's a sports ball game. It's called like Megaton or something like that.
It's called The Running Man.
Not that.
It's called The Longest Yard.
It is
with
called
Burt Reynolds.
It's called The Longest Yard.
It's called Kaylee's finishing a sentence, and I want to hear it. God damn it!
So these women start taking part of this competition and also navigating prison life, and I just really love it because it's intersectional feminism at its finest. And I think Kelly Sue, when given her own book that she is allowed complete creative control over, really shines as a writer. When she is in a position where she kind of has to answer to somebody, that is less the case, just because you can really tell that her writing is stilted by other people putting in their input and her basically having to put in suggestions by Marvel or by whoever. And so this book is 100% her and Delandro, and it's great, and the art on it is gorgeous, and everything about it is perfect. That's my pitch.
There's no raccoon in this book.
Yay!
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Makes sense. Kit, what have you brought for us this week?
Who likes ladies? Who likes Vegas? Who likes gangs? Who likes magic?
Yep.
me, obviously, all of those things in various measures. So I just decided that
I know you're
it was time for a lot of time without pants.
so excited.
When the weather is cold is the best time to take your pants off.
Fishnets.
And so
Fishnet party.
yeah, inspired by the cold weather and people not wearing pants. Black Canary and Zatanna, blood spell. I pick everything that has the word blood in it. Be surprised. Open up the book. Oh, there's more fishnets. You keep turning it. There's fishnets aplenty.
Fishnet party.
Ladies and gentlemen, mostly me, I want to read a book about fun road trippy adventures and fighting with gang members. Vegas, which I miss. It has been 5 years.
What?
Which sucks since I've been to Vegas. And some art that when I looked at it made me giggle because I like some good old time cartoony art. Black Canary and Zatanna is about two chick fun adventures where they go out there and they do what they do best. And in typical fashion, when women are having a good time, it's probably a good idea to pit them against each other. And so there are some fun happenings that occur along this vein.
If I recall correctly, there is a spoopy ghost in this.
Yeah, even a spoopy ghost. And I thought that this would be a fun, light thing to read with two of my favorite characters. So people might agree with me if they like Paul Dini as much as I do.
This is
magic.
I just want to say his name like a Jawa, like Paul Dini.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is an OGN original graphic novel that was put out, I want to say, in 2009, 10, something like that.
I know it's on a very early episode of Out of the Fridge, and it was new at the time, so it was probably like
okay, then not even that.
2011.
Yeah,
I think ish.
Oh man, if it was Out of the Fridge and it was new, it was probably 2012. Because we started View from the Gutters in 2012, and Out of the Fridge started after
2014.
Yeah.
My God, yeah, this came out last year.
Closed. Sorry,
Well, the
library
trade,
copy.
the trade came out last year.
Yeah, this trade did. Yeah. So.
Well, it's an original graphic novel. That's the only way that it's ever come out.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a good one and done story. I actually, by complete coincidence, took this out of the library a couple of weeks ago, having no idea what it was. And then Kit came over and she's like, hey, that's a book that I'm going to pitch.
Yeah. Which was true, and which I took the liberty of already putting tons of copies on hold at the library just in case.
Do it.
Yep,
Means.
I did it. I did it for you guys. I do everything for you. Because I have a big heart. All right.
I had to be the Joe of this episode. I needed my phone
Jingle
to go
your keys. Jingle them.
No.
Let me find some
Nobody
keys.
jingle keys.
God damn it.
Shard, what would you like to pitch this week?
Well, I mean, we got a lot of great books about ladies today, and I think that's excellent. But, I mean, what pairs well with ladies but massive amounts of testosterone and metal?
Yeah.
Maybe that's wrong. I'm not sure.
My
I don't really know
Achilles
anything. What's going on? But this is I brought a Vertigo series because I was like, yeah, Vertigo. I like Vertigo. But this is not Vertigo Magic Vertigo. This is new Vertigo, and it's a story set in California after the earthquake. It's kind of like deteriorating culturally. There's like quarantine zones around the outside of the still remaining city, and life's not so great for the citizens of Los Angeles unless you have a lot of money. Well, that sounds familiar. And a new sport has arisen amongst this to kind of like keep everybody occupied, and it's like some hardcore gladiatorial beat the shit out of each other until you die, mano a mano suiciders action, and that's the name of the book. It's called Suiciders. It's by Lee Bermejo, and it's really interesting. It's at its heart, it's actually more of a crime story than anything else, because it's like what's going on with these guys? Like, a guy shows up and is like, he's got no past. Where is he? And then this other guy's like, I'm the hero of the city, but actually I'm a giant terrible person because I do drugs and kill people and I'm evil. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I read like the first 4 issues of this when it came out, but the trade comes out the week we release this recording. So everyone should go check it out. It's issues 1 through 6 of Suiciders.
Nice.
Volume 1.
Cool.
And Liber Mayhem, I'm not usually a big fan of. Like, I didn't dig on Lex Luthor or the Joker that much.
Yeah.
And I think he draws Batman funny. But I will tell you, when he works on stuff that is not superhero related, it looks awesome and I love it. So check it out if you kind of want to see Liber Mayhem in a new light.
Cool.
It's fun. It's an interesting series.
So I guess I have to vote first.
You do have to vote first.
God damn it. All right. Well, I really enjoyed both Bitch Planet and Black Canary and Zatanna, but I'm going to vote for a book that I have not read before, so I'm voting for Wonton Soup.
Woo!
This is somebody who really is interested in Suiciders, but who really wants strong female fishnet wearing ladies.
Yeah, get it.
I
wouldn't?
have a zombie Black Canary as my lock screen right now, so I have to go with that.
Do it.
Yep. So I'm going with.
Let your voice be heard. Okay, yeah.
It's almost as if I'm screaming, one might say, for Bloodspell.
I
That was awful.
I know.
torn.
Oh God! I hope you're all disappointed in me. I hope that we lose a Patreon sponsor for that.
Wow, why would you
know
hope
what?
that?
Let's just yell at the Patreon people even more. We struck gold. We don't need you. We're gonna make as many puns as we want.
love all of our sponsors. We love
Oh,
everyone.
here's a better idea.
We love our listeners,
They're
but
all beautiful people.
I do hope that one of them threw up a little in their mouth.
No,
when she
you know
listened to
what? Here's a better idea. We can get them to pay us to make less puns.
Ooh,
Oh, there you go.
I like
that-
it.
or more.
Yeah, well, more
We'll
is
have a bidding
preferable.
war.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll have
Punster
a pun
battle.
war.
Shit. Give him a prize. A pun
Well,
prize.
less puns.
No,
Or more puns.
That's no prize.
That is a pun.
That's no way to live. Christies.
I don't understand who would see that as a punishment.
oh God, get out of here. Vomit.
Ah.
Someone else I hope threw up. Kit, what would you like to read this week?
I am torn between two loves. I'm being forced into a book bisexuality.
Happens
And
to the
it's
best of us. It's
frustrating to
fine.
me
It's totally natural.
in ways that are difficult for me to understand because I'm young and I don't know my body.
Just simultaneously exist in 2 different quantum states and read both.
The last time I have been to a metal related thing was almost like, at this point, like 8-9 months ago. So my heart hurts in that sense. I also need to find out why Kelly Sue continues to be a thing. Because I have not read many things by her that led me to understand the degree to which everyone thinks she's the shit. Other than Pretty Deadly, which was fucking amazing. I think because I'm a piece of shit, I'm going to just go by Gender Lines Lady Planet. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, Lady? I still can't believe you have to call it Lady Planet. I'm like,
Well,
It's
I
honestly
just
kinda
want to
cute.
call it Lady
Yeah.
Planet because it's
It's,
that's
it's
pretty
not
cute.
even like, oh,
It's-
this is a forced thing. Like,
oh, you just call it that?
well, it was you're not allowed to swear at work,
Right.
so it's like, so probably shouldn't say Bitch Planet, and then it's like, well,
It's
we
on
just
the
call
cover.
it, yeah, but it's like we call it Lady Planet. It's like, I love that. That's beautiful.
No, unless it's unclear, I voted. And just for an excuse to say it, bitch. Planet.
How is Bitch Planet going, Mother?
Yes. How is Bitch Planet going, Mother?
That's my favorite story she's ever told, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really enjoy Bitch Planet. It's great. But I'm in the mood for a fishnet party. And because when a fishnet party starts, it doesn't stop till it's over.
Or until they rip, and then you
Right?
just kind of lie and say that that's how they were meant to look.
Yeah,
it's
you're
supposed to look
like,
like
nah,
this.
this
That's why
is
they're
my
the
punk.
perfect tights. Number one hose.
Yeah. Number one, #1 hose. Fishnet party. So yeah, I gotta go with Black Canary.
Yes,
and
that's
Zatanna.
good. I've got our
'Cause
books taken care of.
I love some Zatanna. Because I love magic.
Yeah, I really love magic.
I'm a fan of magic.
Yeah.
But speaking of magic, thanks everyone for listening and supporting us.
Your
And
magic.
Through the magic of technology, we've reached your ears. And
And I want to send a very quick special thank you to everybody who has reviewed us on iTunes.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
is actually
friends.
really helpful. So thank
Absolutely.
you to everyone who has done that or who will be doing that in the near future. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
yeah.
Also, special thank you to the 23 people who liked us in the past
Yeah,
like 3
wow.
days.
Yeah, thanks
Which is
Eric Mannix.
amazing.
Eric Mannix just gave us the Mannix bump,
Yeah.
as I like to call it.
Mannix is so special. I
He
love
is
him.
a special man. But
He's
yeah,
the
he
Mannix.
shouted us out to some people, and we got some new people showed up. And
Yeah.
hopefully, if this was your first episode, hopefully you enjoyed it.
Yeah. I'm sorry for the puns.
I'm not.
Yeah, not even slightly. I will never apologize for puns.
Well, I'm glad I didn't make any. And just
Hey.
just like every week, we'll see you guys next time. Read along. Read
Bye,
along.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Me From the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.